Okay, well, I don't think the recording worries too much about who people are, but on my left is
Gillian Carson-Jones from Legal Services, and just to confirm for the purposes of the recording that we've conducted some brief introductions from members. Thank you.
Yep. And in front of me we have
Paul Hughes, Licensing Manager.
and we have the applicants. Would you like to both introduce yourselves and tell me which of you is going to be acting as the spokesman?
Francis Utley from Slades Farm, and I'll be the spokesperson.
Yeah, I'm Valentine Utley from Slades Farm.
Okay, I don't propose to ask all the objectors to introduce themselves because we'll get to there when we get there. So procedurally, what's going to happen is I'm going to ask Mr. Hughes in a moment to introduce the application. And we are dealing with under the Licensing Act 2003, an application for a new premises license at Slades Farm in Thorncombe Street, Bramley. And after that, I will be asking spokesmen from the applicants to introduce their application and tell us everything they want to tell us. The panel will then ask questions of the applicants to clarify any issues that we want clarified. We will then move across to the objectors. And as I said last time, what I suggest is that we ask both Bramley Parish Council and Hascombe Parish Council to speak if they wish to do so. And then rather than having all the objectors speaking, I was initially suggesting that one would act as the major spokesman with others to fill in the gaps rather than repeating everything. And then it was pointed out to me quite rightly that there are sort of two areas that are covered by this, and that there ought to be two objectors who can major, one from the, I suppose, the Bramley end and one from the Hascombe end. And we'll sort that out when we get there to make quite sure that we hear everything that we want to hear, everything we need to hear from the objectors, and then we may ask questions of the objectors. After that, that is the sort of evidence, if you like, and then the applicants will have an opportunity of summing up at the end. We will then, as a panel, retire with our legal advisor and with our clerk to the Mayor's Parlour to decide what we're going to do, and then we'll come back and tell you the outcome. So that is the procedure. Is everyone sort of relaxed and understand that? Good. Right, we're relaxed but formal, if you see what I mean. We have to have a structure to this meeting, but we don't get too hung up on formality. So to start with then, Mr. Hughes, could you address us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you rightly said, you have in front of you an application for a new premises licence for Slades Farm, Thorncombe Street, Bramley, where 31 valid representations have been received from other persons objecting to the application. As you previously mentioned, this is an adjournment from the licensing subcommittee on the 24th of May. And so members could consider a noise management plan and undertake a site visit. A site visit was conducted on Thursday, the 1st of June, 2023. The same three panel members today were on the original hearing, and they were the three members that did the site visit. There have been no representations received from responsible authorities. In brief, the applicant seeks to license the premises for regulated entertainment, which is live and recorded music, Monday to Thursday, 10 till 2100 hours, Friday to Sunday, 10 till 2300 hours. Sale of alcohol for Monday to Sunday, 12 till 2300 hours. And opening hours following an amendment from Monday to Sunday, 0900 to 2300 hours. There is non-standard timing for the annual Slades Festival, one weekend only. Smaller dance stage to continue to 0500 and on Saturday and Sunday morning. One bar adjacent to the dance stage. Attendees to stay overnight on campsite between 12 on Friday to 12 on Sunday. Opening hours at 10 a.m. with the termination hour as per the last sale of alcohol. Following the publication of the report, the applicant has advised that in terms of number of events, they would be seeking looking at Slades Fest for one weekend only, and that's on the area indicated by the pink hash, and a maximum of 12 events, approximately one per month on Slades Farm, indicated by the blue and red hash. Officers request you consider the matter.
Thank you very much. Just a question. Some of the objectors did raise in their objections something to do with the notices. I'm aware that photographs were taken when the notices were being put up. I did indicate last time, bearing in mind the number of objectors, that we weren't going to get too hung up about the notices position, but so far as you're concerned, you're satisfied. Are you satisfied that the notices were duly posted, even if they were maybe torn down by someone else the next day?
Yes, we've had photographic evidence of the notices and a plan of where the notices were put, and also a copy of the newspaper advert. It's not like planning, they don't have to tell the neighbours, they just license and act slightly different. You have to put it notices up and then do an advert in the newspaper.
Fine, and and it may be something for the legal department to comment as well. I mean, we are aware of the four licensing objectives, which, to remind people, are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of nuisance, and protection of children from harm. Just so that we can be quite clear, public safety, where does the public safety have to be considered? On site or in the neighbourhood, or where?
Generally, the public safety would be on site on the premises itself.
Right. So it is not something that, well, perhaps Gillian can connect.
My apologies. If I may add, there is a section within our statement of licensing policy which deals with that question at page 14, para 7. The public safety objective is concerned with the physical safety of people, including performers appearing at the premises, attending licensable activities at the relevant premises. Thank you.
Yeah, just to be clear, we are dealing with public safety on site. We're not dealing with public safety in Bramley High Street or the roads that go to the site, because that's outside our remit, as I understand it. Okay, right, now, oh, and the other thing is that the site visit, it seemed to indicate that the entrance for the Slade Fest would not be as per the plan on page 32, but would be further up the road, and that on page 32, where it talks about vehicle entrance, that might be the taxi drop-off place. Have we received any amended plans about that?
No, Chairman.
Therefore, we're dealing with this application on the basis all vehicles will enter as per your application at where it's marked on page 32, not going right across the field where we were taken when we did the site visit. And we did point that out at the site visit. Not at the, well, if you like, yes. It's just that, you know, this application, we got to be quite clear what the application is before we sure. So we're dealing with it as per the original application?
I think the applicant wants to address that point in his
Okay.
opening statement.
Right, jolly good. I just wanted to check what you'd had anyway. That's fine. Any questions of Mr. Hughes? Either of you? Right, Mr. Hutley, tell us about your application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first of all, on behalf of everyone at Slades Farm, we appreciate the time of everyone and consideration on this topic. It means a lot to us, and I have great respect for the processes used in our society, such as these sorts of hearings, to ensure that events are held to the highest possible standard. I will try and be brief in this statement and save on everyone's time and address the issues as directly as possible. So first of all, myself and Val found the post-adjournment meeting as well as subsequent meetings over the last 2 weeks with various local representatives very helpful and instructive. Whilst we don't expect the undying support of every single local resident, I feel a lot of progress was made in offering greater clarity on our plans, and we appreciated the honest and respectful feedback provided by everyone. And these conversations have really reinvigorated our desire to ensure that this premise license can be as undisruptive as possible, and to make it so that the services that we provide can genuinely put back into the local area in a multitude of ways. The application that has been submitted off the back of a successful event last year on Slades Farm property that saw 400 to 500 people come to Slades Farm for one night under the TENS license agreement for a charity event to raise money for James's Place. James's Place is a suicide prevention charity that has partnered with the NHS to provide life-changing support to young men who are feeling suicidal. This is a charity that is saving lives daily, and it's one that's close to the hearts of our immediate family. Alongside this single 2-day festival per year, we're looking to do other much smaller scale events, such as wellness retreats and fairs, using the existing glamping site and Slades premises. It's important to make clear, because there was a bit of, I think, confusion around this last time, that we formally agreed, as has been mentioned, to reduce the maximum number of these to 12 per year. All of these events will employ, promote, exhibit, or somehow involve local businesses, creators, and individuals from our area. In terms of Slades Fest, the event last year was an evening of festivities centered around micro pop-up stalls and up-and-coming music talent. It was enjoyed by many, and there were no police incidents or call-outs, no fire call-outs, no health service call-outs, and no formal complaints that Elizabeth Bent and the Environmental Health Office were made aware of. Off the back of this success, we have taken on the same excellent team from last year, and moreover, to match the growth in size, we've sought additional expertise in the form of highly experienced consultants to ensure the utmost safety, success, and compliance of all future events, assuming the license is granted. With an extremely well-received event and no recorded incidents, I hope that you will, of course, grant us the premise license for this year and years to come, so we can continue to bring both funds and awareness to this cause, as well as joy to people's lives. We're very grateful for the support this application has garnered from local people, prior attendees, and notable bodies such as the AONB. That being said, it's vital that everyone has a chance to raise any concerns, including council members themselves, and as such, we are here to be as open as possible and respond to the issues that people want addressed. And just to mention on the traffic point, that was something that I was hoping we were going to tell you during this just hearing, as opposed to adjusting and providing new maps. It's not a huge change, but it's a change nonetheless to the existing map. So if it's acceptable, I'll talk that through at some stage during the hearing, and do it like that if that's possible. Okay.
You like to do it now?
Oh, sure.
We
Okay.
need to know what we're dealing with.
Yeah. So last year we used a double gate entrance along Thorncombe Street, which works fairly well. No traffic incidents or anything like that. And It seemed to work quite well, but I think we can probably improve on that a little more because I know there was some complaints around traffic from various people. And so that improvement looks like using an entrance about 500 meters before the existing one at a place called the New Farm Buildings. It's probably got a little more, yeah, that's exactly it there. So there's vehicle entrance with an arrow that's about 500 meters before the taxi drop off, probably a little less than 500 meters. It's a much more kind of open space entrance. It's for farm buildings, so there's lots of big vehicles that go in and out. So they'll go through there and then they'll sort of hug the road along a path to just past the taxi drop off, and then park in that field, kind of just bottom right of taxi drop off, which is the same parking area as last year. And then if you're being dropped off, if you've come from the train station or something like that, you will continue on and use the prior entrance where it says taxi drop off last year. When you've been dropped off or when you're leaving, you'll go out of the gate and turn right rather than left. So it's kind of a one-way system, and then you'll go about 1.5 miles all the way back up to the Whipley Manor 281. Yeah, it's kind of a one-way system. It worked very well last year, and yeah, the only real change is the new entrance, which is slightly wider and more open and easier for vehicles. But yeah, happy to take more questions on anything that's not clear there.
Just on that, because I can see the vehicle entrance is the same that we used when we did the site visit.
Yeah.
The plan we've got in front of us, I think slightly misleading on the taxi drop off, because I think the taxi drop off, if it's the same one as on page 32, is more or less opposite the beginning of Kiln Copse, which takes us much further down the road.
It's
Is the taxi drop off correct on the plan behind me? I think you are.
it could be further along to the right a bit.
Well, it just seems to me the taxi drop off on the plan, which we've produced, not you, is wrong so far as the taxi drop
So
off.
if it's off on that map, then it's probably going to be another 50 meters along that road.
Well, it's nearer to, isn't it opposite Kiln Copse?
It's in, yeah, well, it's not quite. It's about in between Kiln Copse and where the arrow is now.
Well, when you look at, can you look at our papers, page 32?
I think we might have different pages.
Look, can you be shown a plan of showing page 32?
So,
Yep.
That's what we're looking at.
yeah,
And it says at the top of that plan, vehicle entrance.
Yeah, so that's now taxi drop off, and so yeah,
Right.
it's probably 100
And that
meters.
is in line with just about the beginning of Kiln Copse, isn't it not? Looking at your map there.
Yeah, okay, sure, yeah.
So are we taking it that the taxi drop off will be where it says vehicle entrance on that plan that you're now looking at?
That's correct. We're taking it on page 32 of this plan, and we
Right.
can
So that's the
ignore-
taxi drop off.
Yeah.
And the vehicle entrance is as we have put it on the
Mm.
plan behind us.
Yeah,
Is that right?
that's correct.
Okay, so there's quite a large section of people driving on the field before they get to the car park.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Right, understood. Okay, well, we sorted out exactly where we're going there. Anything else you want to say?
That's all for the moment, but yeah, happy to take everyone's questions.
Right. If I could start with. Yeah, we'll deal with that in a minute. Right, can I just now deal with each of the sites in question, just to be quite clear what you're doing on each site and how often? And we've got basically three major sites. The first one is, as on our plan showing red, which is the top one on the screen above us, behind us, me, which says existing farm buildings, fairs, starts of community walks, steeplechase. Is what it says on the map, for those who can't read it. And when we did the site visit, this is in effect the garden of Slade's Farm,
Mhm.
or the lawns of, certainly of Slade's Farm. So I'm right in assuming, I think, that we asked the question, that none of the buildings at Slade's Farm are going to be used for license purposes. So presumably you put a marquee up or a table or whatever's appropriate to sell alcohol.
That's correct.
And how, and this is a very separate site from the glamping site. There's quite a trek to walk between the two. So they are it is a separate site.
Yeah.
How many events do you envisage taking place on the red land?
So on the
Garden of
red,
Slade's Farm.
we envisage about 4. And on the glamping side, about 8.
So you're looking at 4 events on the per year on the land coloured red.
Yeah, I think the distribution would be about 8 on the glamping side and 4 on there, give or take a couple.
Yeah, so if this license is granted, you know, we'll have to decide, give a bit of leeway, exactly how many events. And by an event, we need to define what an event is, because it could be a week-long event or it could be a daily event. Are we talking about daily events on
So-
the land coloured red?
Yes, so they're sort of single day events. running
Single
into
day
the evening.
events.
Yeah,
So on the land coloured red, we're looking at 4 events, say, of 1 day max each. Okay. And where would the parking be for the land edge red? Because there's limited parking.
so
in that area.
there's limited in the Slade's Farm home parking area itself, but across the road from that, where there's a cross-country course, there's a big car park there, which can accommodate 50, 60, 70 cars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. So, and when you have those 4 events, say, is that alcohol? Definitely.
So not all, but most likely, yeah, we would
Yeah.
want to be able to sell alcohol at most of them, yeah.
Yeah. So most of the 4, and live music.
Similarly, it's not the focal point of any of them, but it would be nice for ambience to have some music, yeah.
Background music.
Yeah.
Live bands in the garden.
Could also be considered for that ambience, yeah.
Right. And the hours are as per your application, is it up to 11:30?
It's
On the
11
land
PM.
coloured red, I'm still talking about
11
land
PM, I
coloured
think.
red. And you say on your applications generally that you've got finish times Monday to Thursday and Friday to Sunday, different finish times, and the alcohol sale times are the same.
Mhm.
Drinking up and so on, are you likely to stop selling alcohol quarter of an hour, 20 minutes before the event finishes? Are you going to sell the last bit of drop of alcohol at 1 minute to 9 and then turf everybody out at 9 o'clock?
I think hadn't given that specific point too much thought at this stage, but
Well, we
I think
do.
the nature of the events probably less in the direction of party, although some may go in that direction more than others. And so, you know, maximizing booze sales is probably never going to be the sole objective of any of the events, although it might be a feature of it. So, well, yeah, I mean, given that there's a cutoff point, we'd probably look to start winding things down in the lead up to that cutoff point.
So half an hour, quarter of an hour, what sort of time?
I think probably 30 to 15 minutes before the cutoff point, we'd start to say, you know, wind down, last orders, if that's something you're still looking to have a drink.
So that's the land coloured red, that is the garden to Slade's Farm.
Yeah.
Then there is the glamping site, which on our plan behind me is shown in blue. Again, you said just now, roughly say, you know, not holding you totally to it, but giving us an indication, 8 events a year.
Yeah.
And by events, are we talking about daily events or weekends or what? Just so that we know exactly what we're talking about.
Sure. So the events on the glamping sites are primarily retreat orientated.
Mhm.
The most common format for that would be a 2-day retreat. That's not to say there's going to be drinking and music on both of those days. That's just typically the size of a retreat. So yeah,
We could be looking at, say, 8 weekends, could we, or something
we
like that?
could. Yeah, we could.
That sort of thing,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
from Friday to Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And would there, and we established, I think, on the site visit, that although there are some permanent looking buildings on the site, the alcohol would only be sold from some temporary structures.
Yes.
Marquee or
Yeah.
something of that nature.
Or outside of the terrace. Yeah.
Or out on the terrace, right? Because it is important when we're dealing with premises license to know what premises means.
Yes.
And the parking there, presumably there's quite a lot of parking on the glamping site, is there?
There is a good amount of parking on the glamping site.
And I noticed that in Thorncombe Street, just by the entrance to the glamping site, there are some houses along there, a row of terraced houses.
Cheney Row. Yeah.
Are those in your ownership or are they outside?
Cheney
Ownership.
Row 1 and 2 are Slade's Farm properties, and 3 and 4 aren't.
So they're going to be fairly close to
They're the closest houses to the site.
to the site. So what sort of, in reality, what sort, I mean, if it's sort of, are we looking firstly at alcohol for the same sort of hours that you've mentioned in your application, subject to drinking up time? Yes.
So what
I
was the
mean, you're
question,
looking at till 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, and 11:30, Friday to Saturday.
It's similar times to Slade's Farm. Yeah.
Right. And we talked about drinking up time on the Land Edge Red, and the same would apply.
The same would apply. I would say that the things going on in the glamping site are much less, say, dependent on alcohol and sound. You know, to give a little more detail around those events. They're retreats, wellness retreats, focused on things like yoga. The alcohol and music aspect lies in things like sound healing and 5 rhythms dance, which some people may or may not be familiar with. And they're sort of a feature of the flow of the weekend, which may be 1 hour at times, maybe 2 hours, in which there might be some music, and then drinks would typically be sort of like an evening cocktail rather than an all-day affair.
Right.
So if you're going on a
We've got to
wellness,
have the maximum hours so that we know. You know,
sure.
You're not dealing with a TENS license where you can be specific on each event.
Yeah, so the same hours would apply to Slade's Farm, although
Yeah.
the nature of the events will be slightly different.
So there'll be probably less alcohol being sold then, and less music, live music?
I can't say at this time, unlikely to be live music, although the sound healing, I guess, in theory is live. You
Yeah,
have
yeah.
someone with bowls hitting them. But I would be, in the retreat context, you're
Yeah.
not going to have a live band.
Because it says here, I mean, fairs, yoga, mediation retreats, land management conferences. Where are you going to hold the land management conferences? In the building that's being built?
So the land management conferences, it lends itself well, the site, to kind of corporate getaways and corporate retreats, and the building that you would have seen when you were there would work as a shared space for those sorts of.
But you won't be selling alcohol in that building.
But if alcohol is going to be sold, then it would be outside of that building on the terrace.
Right. So then we come to just running, anything else you want to add on those two? I mean, it's just understanding exactly how it's going to be used and how often. So, because on the face of it, you've applied for, which I can quite understand the objectors are slightly, if not more than slightly concerned at 365 times the, on both of these sites, and it turns out it's very much less. So I just wanted to understand that.
Yeah.
So if we can now come to the Sladefest part of it. We've established where the cars are going to come in. We've established where the taxi drop-off is. You've marked there the car park on the plan, which is coloured green on the plan behind me. And what's the capacity of that car park, roughly?
It could probably do it 1,000 cars.
Right, it's quite a big field. Yes, okay. And then what happens is that, as I understand it, people will then walk from the green to the pink, if that is pink, whatever it is behind me. Yes, pinkish.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that when one looks at plan on page 32, again, I think it's page 32, it shows where the stage will be facing, in effect, facing west-ish, maybe west, southwest or something like that. And tell me, so far as the alcohol is concerned, that is going to be sold on one of the concession sites on that plan. And when will that open from the alcohol point of view?
Probably around about midday would be the start of the sale.
Right. People will arrive, they're going to camp.
Correct.
People who are going to be there the whole weekend presumably will bring their tents and everything else.
Yeah.
Glastonbury style type thing. And whereabouts on the pink is the camping going to be? I understand it's probably on the northern part. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. It's up against the sort
Up
of
the
northern
top.
part, exactly.
Okay.
Right there. That's correct.
And the music each day will start when?
So on the Friday, we look for the music to start at around sort of 2 o'clock, but Friday will only be open down at the bottom, sort of blue patch, as you've sort of made.
Okay, so dealing with the, we've got on page 32, we've got it marked as area 1 and area 2.
Okay.
So let's just deal with area 1 first, because that's the one that's we've got a copy of the agenda. Have we got a spare copy of the agenda?
Different pages, thank you.
I'm looking at this plan which shows area 1 daytime, area 2 nighttime.
Yeah, we're looking at the same plan.
Good.
Yeah.
So far as it also marks the campsite to be confirmed. while I'm at it on that plan.
That's
That's not confirmed. It's going to be somewhere else.
That was a sort of very kind of small area for kind of glamping and artist sort of
All right.
glamping.
I don't think it's too critical where the camping is
No.
actually much. But the area 1 daytime, that's where there's going to be the live stage with main bar and food and charity stalls and everything else.
Yes,
So you're saying that the alcohol will probably start at 12.
Yep.
And the music, when does that going to start? Is it in area 1 at all on Friday?
no, not on area 1 on
Okay,
Friday.
fine. So area 1 will open for the bar at 12
Yeah, on the Saturday.
on the Saturday.
Yeah.
So area 1 will not happen at all on Friday at all?
On the Friday, no,
Nothing?
No.
So nothing will happen on area 1 on Friday, is that right? Okay.
correct.
No stalls, concessions, nothing?
No.
Can we,
Yeah. I think there's no music and sound
Yeah, there's
coming
no
from
music
there,
and sound.
but there will be alcohol sales.
so there is alcohol on area 1 on Friday,
Yes.
but on Friday, there's no music at all from area 1.
That's
No,
correct.
Correct.
But there will be music in area 2,
Correct.
which with some trepidation, we walk from area 1 to area 2. Presumably, that will be safer for the public. when they
Absolutely.
walk between the two.
Yes, that's reconstructed like it was last year.
So area 2 then on Friday will open for music at say 2 o'clock, and is that
1 to 2 o'clock, yeah.
1 or 2 o'clock?
1 to 2 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And that will be live music or recorded music?
Recorded music. It
Right.
won't be live, yeah.
So all area 2 only has recorded music at any
Yeah.
stage, and a DJ or that sort of
Correct.
stuff.
Correct.
And you're wanting that till 5 in the morning on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And then on Saturday is when area 1 comes into play, is that right?
Correct.
And that's when you're going to have the live music starting roughly?
1 to 2 o'clock is again.
Yeah, again 1 till 2 o'clock. And when is that likely to close down in area 1?
We would likely close that down within the kind of antisocial hours limit, which I believe is 11 o'clock. So that's when we would look to try and cut it off. It might be before then, so maybe like 10:30, but between 10:30 and 11.
So if one said that area 1 will be shut down by 11
Correct.
PM. And then you move down to area 2 again,
Correct.
which is when, sorry, Mr. Hughes.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Chairman, on the application, it's just because you talked about recorded music.
Yeah.
On your application, live music, you put down till 0500 as part of the non-standard timing, but not on the recorded music. So you will only be able to possibly, because of the Live Music Act, you'll only be able to have recorded music till 11 PM because if you're selling alcohol till 11 PM. But you haven't put that on your application. I can't expand your application. I can reduce the application, but on the non-standard timing, you didn't put it for recorded music, you only put it for live music and for alcohol.
Could I just have a look at that? Is that all right? I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Right, do you want a 5-minute break while you look at that?
That's the application on this one. Non-standard timing. Saturday, Saturday morning. Normal was, but you haven't put anything. Okay, are we able to switch it? Did we swap it around? I don't believe so, because people could in theory have objected had they known it to 11, but. Well, no. Both. It's invoice now. Do you want to have a 5-minute recess?
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible to take 5?
Right, we've had an interesting discussion as to what live music is and what recorded music is. Mr. Hughes, could you tell us what we understand the situation to be?
I shall try, Chairman. So live music is basically me singing now, or a band, and it's live, it's played now. And as you may know, records, you play a record on a record player, that's recorded music, or something on the radio is recorded, etc., and played. If, however, like you get these DJs and they scratch the record and mess with the record to change the sound and how it works, that would be live music. That isn't recorded music, because under the License Act, because they're actually making the music, they're using recorded music, but making music at the same time.
Mixing or whatever. Right, just shows we're not totally in the last century. Right, okay, so as I understand it, live music in the sense of someone like Paul Hughes singing on stage will cease at 11 o'clock. And then from 11 to 5, what you're asking for is there to be live music in the sense of mixing with a DJ, but not people with instruments actually playing live in that sense. Have I got that right?
That's correct. It's a different form of live music.
Different form of live music. Okay. So we understand what's going on. That's helpful. So we'll be shutting down Arena 1 at 11-ish, and then moving to Area 2 for the subsequent entertainment. What happens after 11 so far as the concessions and the bar is concerned? Will the bar in 1 and 2 both be open, or just 1?
So there will be, so that the main bar is up at the top of the hill in,
Yeah.
in Area 1.
Yeah.
And that will remain available to people to go up and,
Right.
and
Okay.
consume from. And then down at the bottom, a smaller bar set up with canned style drinks will also be available.
Right. Was that on Area 1 on the plan, which is now helpfully behind me? It reads in the last sentence, area remains open all day through to
late evening.
it stops, the sentence stops before it finishes.
Through to the late evening when till 5.
Till 5, okay. And will the Area 2 bar start at 11?
Yes.
Yes.
It won't be open for the rest of the time.
No.
And you've marked on this plan as well, lit path from Area 1 to 2. So there's clearly going to be some improvements to the pathway for public safety and so on and so forth.
Yes, there will
Going to
be.
be lit and going to be a proper surface.
It will be well lit. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Hughes.
Sorry, I might have misheard you there, but you said the bar at Area 1 starts at 11?
In Area 2.
In Area 2, well, none of the bars, the supply of alcohol is from 12 o'clock on the application, so it can't be earlier than 12.
So it's talking about 11 p.m.
It has to stop at 11 p.m. and it can continue till 5 a.m. on the small bar adjacent to the dance stage, which is in the nighttime area, which I think needs to be clarified that that is that stage and not another stage. It just talks about next to the dance stage.
Right. Well, let's go over it again, as I understand it, and you tell me if I got it right. The bar in area 1, which is the main arena, where all the concessions are, which is at the higher up than area 2, the top bit. The bar will open as per your request for the hours that you're wanting to sell alcohol, which is right from, I think you said you would be opening it at about 12 till 11. Is that, well, no, you're saying now that area 1 will be 12 till 5 AM.
Yeah, are we talking PMs or AMs? Sorry.
It's just to clarify, on the application, you've put Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, start 12 o'clock.
No, we're looking at the Slab Fest.
Yeah, but
Okay,
on the
right.
application, so they
Yeah.
say 12 till 11 for alcohol. So that's all the time for the days you want events.
12 noon
And
to
then
11
on the special Slade Fest,
Yeah.
on the non-standard timing, you say annual Slade Fest, 1 weekend, only 1 bar adjacent to dance stage to continue till 5 on a Saturday and a Sunday
Right.
morning.
Right.
So I'm presuming that is, but I need clarification, that is in the area that you're having music till 5, because if you're not having music, there's no point having the bar in the area on. So I'm presuming it's in area 2, nighttime, and it's till 5 of there, and it's adjacent to that dance stage.
So
Well-
what Paul says is what we've applied for, and that's what we're going for. I sort of didn't.
Well, I'm not clear now.
Yes.
Which isn't surprising. Are we at any time having 2 bars open at the same time? First question.
What did it specify that there?
Well,
Sorry.
your application,
In theory, on the application, they can have both bars open
right?
because they're both on the plan, and both bars can be open from 12 in the day till 2300 hours, 11 PM at night. However, the nighttime bar can stay open. The adjacent to the dance stage, the 1 bar there can stay open till 5 AM.
Which, and they're telling us, yes, so which, and are both bars going to be open till 5 AM? They can't be.
No.
So which one is going to be open till 5 AM?
It'll
The
be
yellow
the-
or the red?
the down the hill one will be the late
Right.
night bar, if you will.
In the bowl. So
Yes.
the main bar in the area 1 will close at 11.
Will be shut off then.
Right. So that's not quite what you
No,
told us your
okay, sorry.
plans were. So getting the bar sorted out from 12 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, the bar in area 1 at the higher level
Yeah.
will be open.
Correct.
From 11 PM to 5 AM, the bar in the woods in area 2 will be open.
Correct.
So there'll only be 1 bar open at any one time. You'll transfer the bar activity from area 1 to area 2.
Correct.
So any of the campers who want to bevy at sort of 1 in the morning, you're going to have to come down into the woods to get it.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Understand that now. And I know we've asked this question, site visit, why 5 AM? Why not 4 or 3 or 6 or why 5?
Yeah, sure. So our business model really relies on a sort of sequence of acts and events, all of which lend themselves to specific hours of the day. We've got a number of acts and people that we want to play for our audience, and there's kind of optimal hours in the culture of music that each one of those represent, which takes us through to 5 AM. So it's a sort of, what's the culture of the festival? What do our audience want the most? What does that look like? let's recreate that, and that's why we have the schedule as it is.
And we have the area 2 will close at 5 as you're proposing. And
Mhm.
when's the bar going to close? Again, we have the drinking up time sort of scenario.
Again, it will be probably a extended shutting down period, which should probably begin at 4:15, 4:30. And then that probably intensifies at 4:45, and then full shut off at 5 a.m.
Yeah, and then the next day, having closed at 5, then the bar opens again at the following 11 o'clock, is it? Or 12 o'clock?
The following day on the Sunday,
Sunday will open again at 12.
No, the bar won't be open on Sunday.
Right. So we are saying that so far as the bar is concerned, it wasn't opening on Friday at all. Or was it? No, yes, it was on Friday. Yep, I've got a note. Yes, okay. It's doing Friday, it's doing Saturday. No bar open on Sunday. Apart from the small hours of the morning, which is clearly
correct?
Sunday. Okay. Right. Now, yes.
When we did the site visit, apart from the fact that we had to trek over 1.5 miles of field to get to your wooded area, I was quite concerned about the safety aspect of the public having to get into that wooded area. Now, bearing in mind, we had to climb over a bit of fencing to get into that area. Then when we did get down there, there was holes and ruts and what have you, which to my mind is public safety, because, you know, if somebody catches their foot in a hole down there and breaks their ankle, for instance, then you have to have some kind of medical intervention. So have you considered how you are going to rectify that by having a defined path with no fencing? And I am concerned about that. I am really concerned.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so the state that we saw it in when we went for the visit is obviously not the state that it'll be in for the day of the event. It does take quite a bit of clearing. That fence that we climbed over is taken out for the event. There has, since the previous event, been quite a lot of works going on around there in that, so the ground is very rough. But in the lead up, we go through the ground, fill in any holes manually, and make sure that it's safe for all types of people who are going to be walking up and down it. It did prove itself to be fine last year, albeit possibly a little tiring walking back up the hill. But it was safe, particularly when we've paid attention to where all the holes are and been very deliberate about filling them all in. It's also possible to get one of our Polarises down there as well to help with that process. So.
Can I just come back on this? You said that you'd filled in the holes last year. So have you used the bowl last year as well?
We used that bowl last year in the event, yeah. Exactly the same space.
Hi, if I could ask just a question relating to the public safety issues that were just raised. Well, in fact, it's 5 questions, and I'll sort of fire them all out, and perhaps you could advise us. So is there a maximum number of tickets that you were planning to sell? If so, who controls the allocation of tickets? What are your ticket sales to date? Will tickets be for sale on site if people just show up without tickets beforehand? And finally, has there been a public safety assessment as to the maximum number of attendees that there should be at this festival?
Yeah, sure. So quite a few questions there, but I'll try and address as many as possible. I think Broadly, I think what you're getting at is public safety. And I mean, in response to that, there were obviously no call outs of any health officials last year, police, ambulances, fire, and those sorts of things. So that was a success last year. And then we've built on that this year by getting the noise management plan in place, which we didn't have last year, despite having no call outs. In terms of ticket sales, there's a 1,500 person max. In terms of how many tickets we've sold going into this year, I'm not sure if I necessarily need to share that. But could you repeat your two other questions, I think?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, will you sell tickets
Will
if
you be
people show
selling
up on the
tickets
day?
to turn up on the day?
Yes.
So how will you control numbers if you sell, let's say, 1,300 tickets in advance and 400 people show up on the day? Will they be turned away?
That's
And will you
correct.
have security to turn them away if they become a little bit agitated?
Yeah, there's 8 fully qualified security people on site at all times. And yeah, if we're going to exceed the number of people who attend, then they're turned away. Yeah.
Yeah.
To link to that, I wasn't quite clear where the exit was from the car park. Because if people are checking tickets as they arrive into the car park, then they're turned away or turned around, they're going back against the traffic, or they're actually in the car park and they can't be controlled.
Yeah, as I understand it, between the land on the previous map, the land between the green and the pink is where people will actually, that's where they will be checked on their tickets.
Mhm.
And as I understand it, people are going to be encouraged to come to the car park from Slade's Farm, so going down the map. And then when they leave, they'll be encouraged to go the other way, which is turning right. But of course, there's not going to be a formal one-way system that's going to be.
If their
imposed.
tickets,
So-
if they haven't got a ticket and everything is now sold out, they'll be turned away. If their ticket is checked inside the car park, then they've got to turn around and come out.
Yes,
Or they're going to stop traffic on the road and check tickets on the road, which of course enormous backup.
So there's I've got the design of the traffic plan is so that anyone who's leaving, rather than turning left, turns right, and we've got 3 traffic marshals directing them to do that.
You're missing the point. As cars arrive and they have no ticket and you've sold out tickets, how do they turn around to leave?
So the
Exactly,
tickets,
yeah. I mean, I think it's clear that the cars will go into the car park whether they got a ticket or not.
correct.
Okay,
And then there is a ticket barrier, if you like, between the green and the pink on the original plan. That's when they move from the car park into the Stadfest Arena area.
That's accurate.
Is that right?
Correct.
Yes.
I have clarification on the bar in area 2. Frank, I think you said there will be no bar on a Sunday,
Correct.
but the area 2 will be open until 5 o'clock in the morning, 5 a.m. on that Sunday. So there'll be, so from midnight to 5 on the Sunday morning, there will be the stage open, but no bar.
Yes, Roger, thank you for clarifying that. It will be open on Sunday in those early hours. So yes, in theory, yes, it's open on Sunday, but until 5 a.m. when people have gone to bed and woken up, there won't be a bar available on that day. Does that make sense?
So the bar in area 2 will be open from midnight to 5 a.m. on both Saturday and Sunday mornings.
Yes, yeah, in
That's-
the AM, yeah, in the
that's-
AMs.
That's, you were inconsistent before. That's what you've just stated is what I've previously understood.
Apologies, and
Okay.
thanks for
Thank you.
clarifying that.
Yeah, I think the point was making was that, you know, when we all wake up on Sunday, there won't be any bar open on Sunday in what you might call normal time scales. In other words, Sunday lunch, you won't be able to buy a drink. Sunday afternoon, you won't be able to buy a drink, but you will in the early hours of Sunday, i.e.
Chairman, I'm
extended
not
Saturday night.
used to waking up between midnight and 5 in the morning.
No, exactly.
That's my
Well,
point.
that's why I said
And
when
I may very well
normal
be.
of us wake up. Yeah,
I will
exactly.
be waken up.
Well, okay. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I'm now going to pass over to the objectors and do we want to hear from Hascombe or Parish or Bramley first? Hascombe. Hascombe first. Okay. Let's hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Chairman. You've read Hascombe's outrage at the noise nuisance of last year's trial festival as evidence by many of the objectors and that night's Facebook trail, which you have. We are astonished that the police have not submitted evidence of this, but we are told that they may not have logged the calls since noise nuisance is not their responsibility. We have spoken to PC Burns. We have requested a Freedom of Information Act, and he is going to submit it. Well, who else do we ring when there is noise nuisance at 3 on a Sunday morning? Please question me if you have any doubts over the noise I and my daughter personally experienced in Hascombe. In a moment, I will ask our Hascombe resident, Martin Dodd, to explain how it's possible for noise to travel so far at such a volume in these intricate hills and valleys, and to comment on noise management plan. First, I'd like to explain how we explored compromises with the applicants. The committee is aware that there is a licence for concerts less than half a mile away on the family's Wintershall estate. That licence was renewed in November 2022 and is still extant. The site is at low level in a hollow with multiple access routes, including separate access for emergency services, used very successfully over many years. The Sladesfest applicants explain it cannot be used because the owner, relative, will not allow it since their families have drifted apart. I submit it would be unthinkable to permit 2 live festival licenses within half a mile of the quietest area and part of the Surrey Hills area of outstanding natural beauty. When the National Trust applied for a daytime music license at Winkworth Arboretum, half a mile to the west, that was refused after strong family objection, family of the applicants. We've had a number of discussions with Francis Hutley to explore compromises, such as using the Wintershall site, rotating the daytime stage so that it faces away from Hascombe. And I brought a diagram with me today showing the site, which is right across the middle. It's high on top of a plateau. And why we got the music that night so badly is it's funneled from that stage that you're pointing straight into Hascombe, and why people on Markwick Lane, which is a long way away, were so badly affected in many parts. So rotating the stage so it faces away from Hascombe, or undertaking not to use TENS to have additional activities on the site at any other times of the year. No flexibility has been shown. Nor is he prepared to limit the night time hours. We cannot find any other music license in the area of outstanding natural beauty which extends through the night. It seems that he wishes to push the boundaries to achieve a unique selling point for Sladesfest, regardless of public nuisance caused. Francis does not acknowledge the effects that it has on Hascombe Village, to the extent that no noise monitor has been planned for the village. Moving on to public safety, for which you as councillors are responsible. Are you satisfied that there's a viable plan for dealing with fire and emergency at the festival? I mean, we've been discussing this today, and I'm not quite sure how many minutes I've got allowed to speak about this, but the entrance, oh, it's there, no, it's there, we're moving it to there. That entrance that you plan to use or exit, just a tiny bit of rain And that just becomes to a mudslide. No 4x4 can get up that slope in bad weather when it's clay. So if that is to come later and a license made conditional on its approval, can you suffer the bad publicity of a disallowing a festival for which many tickets will by then have been sold? Think of the constraints. There is a single access route and single lane with parking places. The applicant can aspire to have a one-way system and staggered arrival times, but his stewards have no authority to impose that. One car trying to go the other way will block the road, frustrating visitors, will park in the few passing places and walk to the site. The road will become impassable for emergency vehicles for the weekend. And even if they were to get in, can you be sure they will get out? Don't forget, emergency services access to houses along the gridlocked route. I'm not going to dwell on your obligation to prevent crime and disorder. Our Facebook trail demonstrates last year's problems from drunken and drugged driving down the narrow lanes in the vicinity. Granted, these crashes and arrests were not at the site, but are only to be expected in the vicinity of a night-long music festival. We in Hascombe believe you should reject this application on the grounds of public nuisance, public safety, prevention of crime and disorder. The location on a hilltop above narrow valleys of the area of outstanding natural beauty is simply wrong for a music festival. And I would like to point out that you may have a letter from Rob Fairbanks, but he doesn't understand. He is talking about the Winchell estate, not Slade's farm. He specifically points in there Wintershall estate, and I believe that he's been misled. Now, may I ask at some point that Martin Dodd can talk on the noise management plan, because he is a resident of Hascombe and a total expert on public events over many, many years. I might be considered poacher game turned gamekeeper, but I'm sure Martin is even more of a poacher turned gamekeeper when it comes to licenses. Thank you.
So is he speaking on behalf of the parish council? Because I don't think he's an objector.
He
I
most
am an
definitely
objector,
is
Chair.
an objector.
I've got the names of all 31 objectors and I can't see them on my list.
Well, I am on your list, Chair, and
Okay.
my
You've been
objection is in
corrected.
the pack.
Okay, which numbered objection is yours, do you think? Can you tell me which in the pack number you are?
31, Chair,
Okay.
Right,
top of the bill.
yep. Yep, okay, fine. Well, would it be convenient to do that together?
That would be fantastic, because
Yeah.
he is speaking on behalf of the parish council as
Okay.
well,
Okay,
because he's more of an expert than I am.
yeah, okay, well, let's turn your microphone
Sorry.
off and we'll hear from Mr. Dodd.
Thank you, Chair. By way of context, in terms of being an expert, which I've never claimed to be, but I've worked in the live theatre and entertainment business for over 40 years professionally, and I've produced and run many large outdoor events, including music festivals with capacities of up to 25,000 per night in a variety of locations, including country houses and castle grounds. I'm therefore not against such events, but I do have a lot of experience in managing them and the particular sensitivities that surround them. Noise management is one of the most difficult areas to get right. Artists and audience obviously expect and demand higher sound levels than neighbours may find acceptable, and it's a tricky balance. Sound's also a very difficult beast to tame in the outdoors. It's easy to control what comes out of the speakers, but not so easy to control where it goes after that, due to lots and lots of effects of meteorology, atmosphere, temperature inversions. Sound doesn't travel in a straight line, and therefore what can seem appropriate, say at the edge of a site or even at the nearest neighbouring properties, can be louder some distance away, as it can be carried in the atmosphere and unceremoniously dumped on places further afield, hence Sarah's comment about Markwood Lane. In short, noise propagation in real life situations is very difficult to predict, whatever the theoretical model might say. And there is a theoretical model in the noise management plan, which is quite correct. But as I say, in real life. From discussing the sound levels with the applicants following the adjourned meeting, they said at the test event, the sound was run at 100 dBA, which I assume they meant at the mixing position. And this year it'll be run at 90 dBA, which is a drop of only 10 dB. And even with a flown line array system as proposed, this could be more than cancelled out by the differences in the atmospheric absorption at the time. Also, given the issues experienced by the surrounding residents last year, such a small change is unlikely to make much of a difference. What can be controlled, however, is the choice of location and orientation of the stage and PA within the site. And this is the key first step in establishing a successful event. Indeed, the noise management plan states in section 7, and I quote, "The overriding requirement is for the control of noise at source by considering the event location, orientation, and design." In this case, I would argue that both are fundamentally wrong, in that the site is on a hilltop and the daytime stage faces southwest across the valley towards Hascombe, High Hascombe and Winkworth, not to mention the Langhurst properties a mere 300 metres away. What topographical features there are, such as the trees on the southwest edge, are negated as the site is above treetop level for all but the first row as they grow down a steep escarpment. Also, in truth, trees offer very little attenuation unless they're several hundred feet deep. Finally, I would argue that the background noise in the valley is almost non-existent, except for the sounds of deers, foxes, owls. Therefore, the statement in the licence application that you're being asked to approve, and I quote, that noise or vibration from the premises will be maintained at a level that will not be audible at the facade of any neighbouring noise-sensitive premises, and bear in mind some of those are less than 300 metres away, is clearly not achievable. And it's actually stated in the applicant's noise management plan that they're going to aim for 60 dB at those nearest premises up to 11 o'clock at night and 15 dB above background thereafter. Neither of which you need to be a sound expert to know doesn't qualify as being inaudible. And I think that actually says it all, Chair.
Can I just clarify one thing? Clearly, looking at the plan behind me, at 11 o'clock, things are going to stop in the, what you call Arena 1, and it's all going to go down into the woods, which is a much further down, if you like, surrounded by trees in the wood. That's what's going to be potentially the problem for neighbours from 11 o'clock through till 5. It is, when you said it was all on the top of a hill, and therefore, you know,
Well, sorry, Chair.
this won't be this bit. Is there any comfort from the fact that the you know, the arena is going to be down in the valley, in the woods after 11?
Well, it's certainly better that the late night sound, yes, is down the hill and pointing at the valley. But as I said, Chair, the way noise propagates, it's not linear. It can go up, along, and dump down depending on the conditions at the time. But yes, it's certainly the best place to put the overnight stage, but that doesn't account for the fact that you've still got all that noise during the day.
Okay. Well,
anyway, and you're blasting it from the highest point across the villages.
thank you for that. Right, now let's go to Bramley, please.
Thank you, Councillor Goodridge. My name's Jane Austin. I'm a Bramley Parish Councillor and I'm also Waverley Borough Councillor for Bramley and Wonersh Ward. Before I start, I just wanted to raise the concern that the plans are incorrect and that all of these applicants and objectors have been given imprecise plans with the wrong entrance and the taxi point wrong. And the demise, as demonstrated on this plan, includes property, I believe now, which is not even under their ownership. This is this yellow piece here. Is that correct? That's correct. So, yeah, I'm just concerned that we're all doing all of this on the basis of imprecise and incorrect information. I'm going to split our comments into two parts: the ongoing licensable activities, 365 proposed 7 days a week, and then I will move on to the Slaves Fest proposals. So firstly, we object to the ongoing licence application on the following grounds: the proposed hours of operation, hours for supply of alcohol, hours for live and recorded music are all excessive, with the potential to heavily impact on local residents' quality of life and quiet enjoyment of their premises. All other local established businesses have nowhere near this level of operation, hours of business, just bearing in mind this is an inaccessible rural AONB location. Under nuisance, for even the current glamping site, Bramley Parish Council are aware of a number of ongoing issues of disturbance and nuisance, including noise, music, aggravation to local neighbours, drunken behaviour, and roaming onto other people's land. These issues have been highlighted by many objectors' letters, so I won't repeat them now. Safety, conferences, fairs, yoga retreats, etc., will all involve a substantial increase in traffic, which, given the extremely inaccessible location, increases safety risk for both those on and off-site. We see no evidence of any traffic or site management or mitigation plan. The applicant's avoidance of mentioning this issue does not mean it does not exist. Nuisance, we request an outright rejection of any proposal for a nighttime steeplechase on the grounds of noise, nuisance and safety issues, both for those on site and for local people. I want to now just move on to, it's my duty to mention the planning issues, which I know are not directly relevant, but they do call into question the reliability of the applicant. We are aware the applicant is in multiple breach of planning at the glamping site, hatched blue on the applicant's plans. Breaches as follows: the current live application, Waverley Enforcement, is aware the applicant has completely finished construction work of the building on the glamping site with no planning permission in place. The original glamping permission specifies tents should be green. There are only 5 tents. There are 6 tents, and those tents are 3 of them are white.
Sorry.
It's more about reliability, which is
Yeah.
my concern of the applicant. I think this demonstrates that the applicant is currently in breach of many issues already. And how does that demonstrate reliability in terms of this licensing application?
If I could just intervene,
Yes.
if I could intervene, that obviously the committee will be considering the application on its merits, and noted that you've mentioned that planning is not a relevant matter for their consideration or for the purposes of this hearing. And I note what you say in terms of their previous conduct, but that's very much a separate matter, and I think it's unhelpful to raise it in this forum. I appreciate that members will no doubt put what you've said to one side. And just as a matter of fairness, the applicant, you have mentioned there's been no thought given to the transport plan. There is mention of that at page 27 of the papers under section D, prevention of public nuisance. So just to redress the balance there. And I note that mention has been made by yourself and another speaker in relation to the AONB, which is a planning qualification of the land. And again, that's a matter which obviously this committee can take into account the characteristics of the land, and other matters are set out in the statement of licensing policy. But again, those are separate planning matters, and I don't wish to be unhelpful, but they're very much distinct processes and procedures, if that assists. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. I also, just listening to this just now, wanted to just highlight that I believe it's unrealistic to expect from the glamping site that alcohol will not be sold from the building. I just can't see how that's going to happen. I note that there are now proposed 4 events happening on single day events on the area hatched red, Slades Farm, and 8 events proposed on the glamping site, weekends. If it's raining, I mean, I can't see that that's realistic, that you'll just sell alcohol outside the building. So taking all this into account, we request the ongoing element of the license application, that the hours and days of operation be shortened, a license be granted for a maximum of 10 events a year, and demised specifically, with no ability to revert to a TENS application to get around this. Any license granted should be over the specific demisable areas relevant to the activities, not over the whole premises as currently defined. It's unreasonable to request a license over the extensive acreage of the premises, over the whole of it. So, for example, the alcohol license just for the area within which alcohol is proposed to be sold. We request a condition there is an outright rejection of a nighttime steeplechase. We request if any license is to be granted, it is to be on a rolling 12-month basis, and if there are any reports that deem noise, nuisance and safety are an issue, then the license be reviewed and, if necessary, revoked. Moving on to the Sladesfest element, we first do want to also highlight a number of our parish residents have stated concerns about the number of tickets already sold without a license in place. Turning to the application itself, I state that Bramley residents who know this road and area are extremely concerned anyone would even consider having an event for that volume of people in this inaccessible rural location. Our main concerns are under public safety and prevention of nuisance. 1, public safety. We are surprised none of the relevant of our authorities have responded with comments, and we query whether further reporting and assessment should be undertaken with police, fire and ambulance emergency services. Our primary concern is about access for emergency services. We understand you're not allowed to consider traffic under this licence application. However, public safety issues stemming from even one badly parked car from 1,500 attendees on the access road are very serious. The site is only accessible by car via single track roads in all directions. There are no bus or rail services, so all ticket holders will arrive by car. We have seen no evidence of or little evidence of how the applicant intends to deal with a serious emergency on such an inaccessible site. We further believe assessment of all safety issues relating to this site and further risk assessments should be undertaken in the event of blocked access to emergency services. We note the long distance for cars to have to travel within the site to reach the car park and are concerned in case of inclement weather that this could cause some real public safety problems. It's also worth noting that to host a festival of this nature will require equipment trucks, multiple food vans, power supplies, lighting equipment, toilet blocks. These all have to get to and off site, which will cause a great deal of nuisance to local residents and may become a safety issue in the event of inclement weather on mud on a hillside site. This issue falls under safety and nuisance. In terms of Sladesfest, the nuisance aspect, we believe all the objectors have provided evidence to sufficiently demonstrate the application for a festival for 1,500 people in this location will disproportionately disadvantage many members locally and within the wider community. To paraphrase Waverley's licensing statement, the licensing authority is a key aspect of the control of nuisance control, and licensing law will always be part of a holistic approach to the management of the evening. We have reviewed the noise report and do not find comfort that it will mitigate nuisance for the local residents for a 48-hour-long festival and associated noise. The noise report does not take into account the acoustics of a valley location in which the noise travels a great distance up and down the valley, as evidenced by the experiences of residents living some distance away in 2022. We note the direction of the stage is the same as 2022. Reviewing the test 2022 Sladesfest, which was on a much smaller scale, we note the numerous reports of damage around the site, car accidents locally, repeated reports of noise disturbance, ongoing excessive noise, lack of sleep for local residents, and negative impact on mental health for local residents, both young and old. This compilation of evidence provides to us a small scale snapshot of what will likely unfold at this year's event, but on a larger scale if a licence is granted. On behalf of residents of Bramley and surrounds, we seek that the relevant authorities are further consulted, given the unique constraints and safety concerns relating to this site. Further, to again paraphrase Waverley's licensing policy, Waverley expects licence holders to make every effort to minimise the impact of their activities and any nuisance or antisocial behaviour by their patrons within the vicinity of their premises. We do not believe the applicant has carried this out to anyone's satisfaction. We believe to satisfy above and the safety concerns from local people, you should seek a further response from the emergency services to definitively confirm they are comfortable, they could easily access site safely, and it would be safe for attendees. Until that point is satisfied, we request that the Sladesfest element of the application is rejected on the grounds of risk to public safety on site and off site, and the prevention of nuisance. We request, if any licence is granted, for the Sladesfest element, it is granted only for the specific area as defined and hatched pink, with a specific exclusion for any other areas of the site, including the glamping site and Langhurst Farm. We request the direction of stage needs to be reconsidered as well. Any licence granted to be reviewed annually and amended or revoked as necessary, following analysis of the previous year's event. I think that's it. Thank you.
Chair, if I may, Chair, with your permission, if I may just clarify a couple of points. In terms of procedure, I think there's been reference. I think in terms of procedure, there's been a suggestion that we should seek input from those responsible authorities, and it's a matter of record that they have not submitted any comments in relation to the application. In terms of the legislation, the Licensing Act Hearings Regulations 2005 mean that members can ask questions of any party or other person appearing at the hearing, and of course the supporting documentation is also relevant in your determination. Section 18 of the same legislation confirms that in considering any representation or notice made by a party, the authority may take into account documentary or other information produced by a party in support of their application, representations, etc. So just to confirm that it would not be usual or appropriate for us to seek input or to defer the decision to seek further involvement or information from interested parties. I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
And I think it's also on the other side of the coin that if the panel was minded to grant for the Sladefest, it could put a precondition that reports are sent to the Safety Advisory Group and that it be signed off by them before the festival starts, which would, the Safety Advisory Group, I understand, includes police, highways, fire, etc.
It may be that that's an appropriate route for you to consider as part of the application that's made, and obviously the conditions should be relevant and proportionate to any concerns which are substantiated and on the basis of the licensing objectives, which there are 4 and the parties are all, I think, very aware in terms of this matter. And the speaker has also mentioned a review process which is distinct from these proceedings. And obviously, were there to be any issues or concerns, then those could be notified to the relevant authorities and steps taken as may be appropriate at a later time, and that would ultimately result in a review, but that's distinct from this process. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yes.
I would just like to add that I've spoken to our police this morning, and he made the suggestion that this should be adjourned for a Freedom of Information Act that we've requested from Hascombe Parish Council to provide the evidence that substantiates the Facebook notifications that we've already submitted. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I think it's appropriate to mention that obviously that's in hand and the members can add appropriate weight to the observations that you and other parties to the proceedings have made. But I think it's inappropriate to make reference to the police who are not a party to this hearing. Thank you.
Okay, we consider everything we're told and suggested when we retire. Right, is there anybody else who wishes to add? What I don't want is 31 repeats of what we've heard already. Those two gentlemen have indicated like to speak. So if I think you were the first one. And your name is?
Edward Dwyer from Hascombe. I did write in and object, and I know, sorry.
Mr. Dwyer, I think you're number 29 on the list.
29, yes.
Right, so we know what you've said. We can get that in front of us. Yes. What do you want to add to that?
Yes, I would actually. Looking through the correspondence on this, and I note the reference to AONB not being part of the conditions for licensing. However, there is a responsibility on the part of the council to protect these areas. And if you refer to a previous application for glamping on this site, which is WA 2020-1861, this is a plan, but it is relevant to this because in that planning approval for glamping, there was a specific condition that no amplified or recorded music shall be played on the site.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I make that very clear? And I would have made it clear at some stage that by granting a license, if we did grant a license, it in no way overcomes a planning problem condition. In other words, the applicant should be applying to the planning department to sort out that condition as well as applying to us for the license. So to make it abundantly clear, some people think, well, if the licensing committee have told us we can have music, then the condition on planning doesn't apply. It still applies.
And it does in the sense that the reason to prevent noise pollution and preserve the tranquility of this area. And it is very, you've been there, you've seen it, so I won't repeat it. The second condition on that was that the limited approval for those sites was to, in the words of the officer, to limit the scale of development in order to preserve the special landscape character of the AONB area where this festival is proposed. So second point, the summary of this that I just very swiftly give you, quoting from AONB, it's the duty of Waverley to conserve and enhance the natural beauty of AONB in their area. Number one, refuse.
We have that as an obligation when we're in planning mode, but we're in licensing mode.
Well, I don't think you can just accept that these two are not connected. I know you're in, licensing mode.
I'll take advice from our.
It may assist if I refer you to our statement of licensing policy, which is a relevant and key document for the purposes of this hearing. And it does state at page 18, 8.10, in the context of conditions, but conditions will be tailored to the style and characteristics of the premises and the type of activities expected to take place there. So if that assists, and obviously there is reference and the members will have a copy of that document in full. We've heard some extracts being read out, as well as the revised guidance, which is issued by the Home Office under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. And that's quite a comprehensive document of about 150 pages, which sets out the factors, including under the licensing objectives that the committee will take into consideration for the purposes of this decision making today. Noted that there are separate matters which take their separate course in a different forum within the same building. I appreciate that's slightly odd, but that's where we are in terms of the purposes of today's hearing and the relevant factors for determination and consideration.
So in summary then, in layman speak, the damage that this will do to AONB is taken into account by this meeting when reviewing whether or not to give permission. Is that correct? Pretty straightforward question.
We've obviously got to take into account where this is, the site where it is, and its setting and everything else, how you get to and how it will affect it. So we take everything into account, and that's one reason why we did a site visit, so we could understand exactly. I know the area quite well, but my colleagues who don't come from this part of the borough did not. So that's why I suggested we had a site visit so everybody can understand the setting that this is going to be held in.
And if it assists by way of further clarification, again, with reference to the statement of licensing policy, the fundamental principles are that the Act requires, that's the Licensing Act 2003, requires that the licensing authority carry out its various licensing functions so as to promote the four licensing objectives: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, the protection of children from harm. Each objective is of equal importance. There are no other licensing objectives, and those are the four matters for paramount consideration at all times. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And gentleman over here, if you give your name as well, please.
Yep, so Richard Tuck, I live in Thorncombe Farm, so it's adjacent to the glamping site and Slades Farm. Number 6 list, I think we are.
Thank you. Number 6. Yes, we'll just get your objection in front of us. 6, which is on page 44.
Okay, so I'm speaking on behalf of our close neighbours that all live adjacent to the glamping site and the Slades Farm area. We've heard from several speakers today and from the reports that noise does travel very easily in this valley. Even normal spoken instruction to sound school speech on the glamping site can be heard in our gardens quite easily. In fact, my young grandchildren, when they're 3 years old, learnt the F word from the people playing tennis in the courts just across the road. So sound travels very, very easily. The planning committee recognised that, and again, there's a lot of concern about planning discussions when they imposed the restrictions that have been mentioned about no amplified music and restricting volumes. We met helpfully yesterday with Frank on site to try and dig in deeper to understand what would take place on the glamping site and what would take place on Slades Farm. Because as residents, we were not clear, and you probed this very clearly at the beginning of the discussion, but what activities were at each location and what that meant for residents. A long discussion ensued, constructive discussion, but we still couldn't establish what events would take place on the glamping site yesterday. And as we left Frank yesterday afternoon or late morning, we challenged him should even withdraw the application for the glamping site, as he wasn't sure activities would take place there. That has now changed completely in 24 hours. So now the balance seems to be much more to the glamping site for 8 events, rough number, and 4 to Slades Farm. That really concerns us. And the fact then to hear today for the first time, those events could be 2-day events, which again, additional noise. And we've had experience in the past with the glamping site. When used individual families, Normally, it's not an issue. Individual families tend to self-manage, have children, go to sleep. It's usually fairly close. It's when larger groups are present that know each other that noise erupts, because then suddenly you've got 20, 25 people speaking, not families of 4 or 5 individually. And that's our concern now with this kind of now, maybe 2-day event. There'll be 25 people now, all know each other. With social gathering in the evening for drinking, there's going to be a bar. This is going to amplify the noise dramatically in that environment. And we're trying to work together. Now we've pushed back on noise occasions, and we've accepted when there's been kind of general hubbub of noise. We've already heard in the past of the same family when Winkworth applied for their license, fought against that, even put money into the legal fund with the other residents to fight the application. And that was it's a daytime license only. It didn't extend to the evenings or the nighttime. We've had numerous problems in the past, so with noisy events. For that, at Slade's Farm, when they tried to use a wedding venue, they used tents there to run commercial weddings. September the 7th, 2019, there's a tent in place for a wedding. The tent permitted music until 1:30 a.m., already very late for local residents. Music continued until 4:30 a.m. And environmental health reference is FS 1422 98 577. They were involved in that situation. So again, get the rules, get the approvals, and push it one step further to 4:30 in the morning. As neighbours, as the glamping site up and running, we've been called upon to provide first aid to campers on occasion, and also we've endured having our driveway and front lawn used as a toilet on occasions, which is not acceptable. I understand planning is not a part of this consideration, but when I read the kind of council's handbook, whilst there's a clear distinction and separation between licensing and planning in terms of remit, councils have a key role in ensuring that these two events, these two different services are fully joined up and aligned. Also, where Sarah Carroll from Planning Enforcement has written to the licensing team, asking them to, I quote, please could someone from licensing update Mr. Tuck regarding the licensing application and confirm that it will not allow amplified music on the site. So again, that will be on record with your team. So clearly planning and pushing for that alignment that the guidelines push for. I had other comments around public safety. I think they've been addressed though. My concern is about the lanes becoming blocked. We are seeing more and more occasions already today with existing activities, the lanes becoming gridlocked. We've got the cafe, we've got the glamping, we've got the now the new storage facility, we've got the horse riding events. So more and more cars coming to the facility. Just takes one problem. I met a lady last week in the street. Sorry, I can't reverse. Can you reverse? Just need that one occasion, there's a emergency vehicle trying to reach the glamping site, the festival, or whatever, and it will cause huge delays to medical aid being put in place. Thank you for your time.
I just wanted to ask one question, if I may, of the applicants. I just want to ask one question of the applicants. Exactly 10 years ago, the family of the applicants submitted and I quote, complete objection to the National Trust's application for the use of Winkworth Farm for dancing, music and the sale of alcohol. Indeed, the applicant's father led a round robin to raise finance amongst local residents to help pay for and retain a planning consultant to advise us on how to proceed. In the correspondence with the council, to which we were copied on, or to the licensing policy, may I say, the quote was, none of the locals have any sympathy whatsoever with the National Trust's endeavours to commercialise the Arboretum, as particularly over the years ahead, we are sure that the proposals will develop into considerable local nuisance. The question I would like to ask is, what has changed?
May I
Sorry.
respond quickly, just in case I forget?
All right.
Well,
Okay.
I know, just because it's a very quick answer, which is to speak to the applicant speak to that objector. I was 18 years old at the time, so I really don't know anything about what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, it's a large family, they've got lots of land and, you know, they're obviously coming from different directions, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, that bit, but then there's more on the Wintershall estate and so on. Okay, well, I think that deals with objectors. I think there is a point you want to make to the applicants before we ask them to sum up. or-
Chair, if I may, I think you mentioned it may just have been a turn of phrase, one more, but obviously everyone that's made representations in writing,
Yeah.
they will be taken into consideration,
Oh, yeah.
just to clarify as part of the procedure. And can I just encourage, if anyone hasn't had their observation made, that obviously
Yeah.
now is the opportunity
Yeah,
for you
yeah.
to speak, if that's
Yeah.
helpful to
I-
clarify.
I made it clear that clearly anything that hadn't been covered, any applicant, any objector here can make the point if we haven't covered it by a speaker that's already spoken. So I think we've read all 31 and we'll refresh our memory when we retire to the objections. So I think I'm sort of closing the section now on objectors speaking. I think one of my colleagues wants to raise a question, so raise it and then you can sum up, if you like, before we retire, covering any of the points the objectors have raised and just covering anything that you want us to consider that we need to do so that hasn't been covered already. Okay, Councillor Keane.
Thank you. I just want to go back to the business of the 5 a.m. finish. You know, you were saying that the reason it's 5 a.m. is because you've got different acts and this and that, different music. So, you know, if it came down to it that the timing had to be less, you had to close earlier, is it because you'd have to cancel bands or it, you know, why does it have to be the DJs? Why does it have to be 5 o'clock for you to do this? Because obviously the residents around the area are saying that 5 a.m. is too long. Could you not reduce your DJs to maybe help the residents out?
Sure. And yeah, noted that point has been raised a bit. As I say, it's yes, there are acts which form a certain sequence in this style of culture of music, which ideally arrives at about 5 a.m. as the finishing point. In terms of the noise output, our solution to that, rather than, you know, one option could be sort of cut the hours back, but our solution to that was get a noise management plan, which is going to contain the noise during those hours. And I know there's a lot of trust that isn't going to happen. But at the end of the day, it's really not us that's managing any of that. We've outsourced that to a noise expert who's there on the night with a decibel reader. And if anyone, there's a hotline so he can be called and he can go to the complainee's house with the decibel reader and check to see if it's above EHO recommended limits. If it is, he goes back and makes sure it's within it. So our solution has been to actually implement a system like that, where we're very sure that we can't breach EHO limits thanks to outsourcing that side of the whole operation to this guy. Yeah.
If I could just say that if somebody's phoning you up at say 4 or 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, they're already hearing all this noise, so they're awake.
We're confident that they won't need to. I'm sure we'll you know, people will find a way to get their complaints in and things like that. But as multiple people have mentioned, they do say that they stepped outside of their house, went into their garden, and it's like, okay, by the time you're there, yes, you might be able to hear something, but the fact is you were in your bedroom before that. Yeah.
Before you sum up, can I just raise another point? Just technical. We had the noise management plan given to us last week. And I understand on Sunday or Monday, another version was produced. I can't see any difference between version 1 and version 2.
Yeah.
Is there one? And if there's a change, can you tell me where the changes are?
It's So the changing of that plan was because of the traffic conversation that we had. It doesn't really impact noise management as much. The request to the noise management person was to change the entrance indicator with a map. That we've obviously discussed the new change to the traffic, but it was around that specifically.
So there's nothing that's changed. Yes. Yes, yes, please.
I wonder if I could ask some questions for clarification on the application. In terms of the SIA or equivalent qualified.
You speak up.
Yeah. Thank you. In terms of the SIA and other arrangements in terms of appropriately qualified staff on site, can I just check whether there will be searches on entry to the premises? I'm thinking of the Slades Fest rather than the actual day-to-day application. I appreciate they're two in one.
Sure. Yeah, so part of the screening process with people entering involves a search.
Thank you. In terms of entry and exit from the premises, and again, thinking of Slades Fest,
yeah.
Is there a specific entrance? Obviously, I appreciate in the event of an emergency, it might be slightly different, but I just hope to clarify the maps that you've provided. And I know we've discussed that at an earlier start of the proceedings. But I think it does say event entrance and security on the map at page 32. Is that effectively the main point of entry?
Yeah, my page numbers are different, but from memory, I'm pretty sure it is. Where it says vehicle entrance.
It says here, event entrance and security. Shall I come closer?
So
that's the plan that's being shown now.
So that, yeah, that's the point at which people get checked and show their tickets.
And in relation to the Challenge 25 policy you mentioned within the document, again, I don't see there's a reference to a refused sales log or incident logs. Is that something that you'd be prepared to accept? If
absolutely, I think that would be appropriate.
I think we've had some discussion about tickets being available in advance or on the day, and I think you clarified that you intend to sell tickets on the day as well.
Also, yeah.
Thank you. And in terms of lighting, I have seen within the paper there is reference to a moonlit woodland space and electronic music and electronic lighting. I appreciate that we've talked about health and safety provision and so on, but just to clarify, in terms of flashing and bright lights, what your position might be?
Sure. So we would take guidance on these matters from both Calvin and also Alex rules. I think that on the flashing lights point, the general understanding is that people with epilepsy and those sorts of conditions don't attend these sorts of festivals, and they know not to because they largely know what they're getting themselves into when you go on the ticket page or something like that. So there's no explicit outreach to people to say about epilepsy and things like that, but we kind of trust that there's mentions of live music and recorded music and lighting and things like that. So if you're someone who suffers from something like that, you know not to attend.
So I was thinking, apologies if I didn't make it entirely clear, but in the context of nuisance to others by the lighting,
yeah.
But obviously the balance with health and safety, it's a necessity. So just to confirm that's the case.
Okay.
And there has been mention about engagement with other parties, and there is a possibility of an event management plan being passed forward to authorised officers with certain requirements as a further sort of check and balance that can include safety plans, medical plans, communications plans, etc., transport management. But is that something that you would consider
Absolutely.
and be willing to engage with?
Yeah.
And there has been, I think, discussion, you've mentioned it in the context of the noise management report, of a point of contact for residents, nearby individuals that can feed in real time. And again, I note that you are happy for that to be in place as an arrangement.
Absolutely, yeah. There'll be a hotline.
Apologies, I should have tabbed up my notes better. And I think the final note I just wanted to raise. No, I think that's adequately covered, but thank you for clarifying.
Thank you
those
very
matters.
much. Sorry to clarify one more thing. Do you mind just repeating the question about the lights and flash? I understood part of it, but not fully.
Yes, it's in the context of light pollution issues.
Okay.
Various individuals have set out within the representations, and we've also heard today that that's a concern, and that's a potential nuisance issue in terms of licensing objectives. So obviously for health and safety and security reasons, there may be good reasons for there to be lighting in place, but it's just to confirm that that's been considered. So
Yeah, absolutely. Security lighting has been considered. Yeah.
thank you.
Right, that's the end of all the questions. I think now is the time for you to sum up or tell us anything that you want to draw our attention to, particularly on matters raised by objectors or ourselves, that you want to clarify before we retire and consider our decision.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much, everyone. I've scribbled a lot of notes in reference to lots of the objections raised. I'll try and get through as many of them as I can, and then I'll try and maybe lump some together in different categories like noise. So, yeah, I kind of see it. There's the technical side of things, you know, and then there's the kind of emotional side of things. And clearly, we're not super popular amongst a lot of the neighbours, and that's definitely something I'm keen to change. I mean, the short answer to a lot of the issues raised around noise, public nuisance, traffic, and the sort of, I guess, unemotional technical answer would simply be that we did host an event last year where, in terms of trustworthiness and previous conduct and things which were raised quite a few times, I think the fact that there were no fire police call-outs or environmental health call-outs or police call-outs, and the fact that the license has gotten to this stage, it's had to pass through those different bodies, I think just kind of in one foul sweep can potentially speak to all of those issues. So that's the sort of, I guess, technical answer, but obviously that may not satisfy everyone on the kind of emotional side, which is just as important, I think. So I'll try and address that as I go through. And I'll try and just go through some of the points that I scribbled out. So there's a kind of a lot of talk about the glamping. There's obviously planning things there which don't concern this, but I can address some of them anyway. The white tents, for example, fully noted, they're meant to be green, and I've been in touch with the Environmental Agency and the relevant planning people on that, and that I made them aware, and we're working towards a time when I can turn them into green. So that they know about that. And then with regards to noise coming from the glamp site and those sorts of things, I do slightly take issue with all the fingers pointing there. And, you know, we did walk the site yesterday, and you speak about music. There's never music coming from the glamp site. If you ever hear music, it's coming from the SAND school and the radio. And I did point that out to you yesterday. They have a radio playing there pretty much all day, and that goes late into the night as well. And I personally police the whole site all the time, and to make sure people are quiet, and we've got lots of things in place, but none of that's relevant to this right now. But just to give you a few responses on that. And in terms of trespassing and drunken behaviour going on the footpaths near you, again, that could literally be anyone, and we really don't have those types of guests anymore at our glamp site at all. So yeah, that's some points on that. There was a mention of the midnight steeplechase. I think that's probably an item we could be happy to withdraw. I don't want to speak for, but I think it sounds like there's a bit of sort of confusion around what that is, and it sounds a bit intimidating. So I think we'd be probably happy to withdraw that from the application altogether and not consider that. Yeah, and there was a point Mira raised around it being very unlikely that we'll only sell alcohol outside on the glamping site. So I think it's important to note that retreats, or the glamping site is very much an outdoor-based type of space. It's a very seasonal, summer-orientated place. So retreats, a lot of time is spent in the outside, and there's a big open pergola space which is covered where the booze can be sold. So yeah, I feel confident that we'll be able to stick to that. Traffic is obviously something that's been raised a lot. I'm slightly confused as to whether that is the purview of this panel. It may be to at least to some degree, and there's noise things around it. So in that way, it could be part of this discussion. In terms of road volume, I do think that the level of traffic has been massively overstated in terms of Slades Fest specifically. That's certainly not to say that there won't be an uptick in traffic on the Friday and the Sunday for sure. But bearing in mind, an estimation of, well, first of all, an estimation of 800 to 1,000 people will come this year. The Life of Christ, which happens every year, has 10K plus people. Sure, not all of them are using that precise road. A lot of them are coming from Whitley Manor and coming in that way. But I would say about a third of the traffic comes from there. So that would be 3 times the size already using that road and that's been going on for years. So, and in regards to a lot of vehicles not being able to get to the site, well, I mean, to set up the site, you have to get a lot of vehicles up there, and we managed to set up the site last year. And again, from a safety perspective, if the different safety agencies weren't confident that could happen, then we wouldn't be in this position right now. As regards to the Winkworth application, I never objected to that. I didn't even know it was going on. But maybe members of my family did, granted. So a few comments around sort of danger to people, which that is obviously very important. And yes, people do consume alcohol and behave differently and things like that. So it is something for sure to take very seriously. We're happy with how it went last year on that front. And we've, I think, leveled up our plans this year in part from having to go through this whole process. And with the people we've got on board, such as Alex Rules, who's been in the events business for years and is providing some very useful guidance on the best ways of mitigating any dangerous behaviour. And then security forms a big part of our plan as well. And a lot of the security personnel, I think all of them are trained in the relevant fields, such as first aid and things like that, which is very important for emergencies. I think there was mention of Wintershall and conflating things there. A lot of people seem to know more about our relationships with Wintershall than we do. But no, but not to make jokes, because obviously these are important points. but yeah, it's not really feasible for us to host events there because there's a loss of family members. It's not really our land. And so in that sense, it's not really feasible. And again, contrary to a lot of points raised, I think the location we've picked, is on a par with Wintershall in terms of particularly that canopied area down there, on a par in terms of being able to really stop noise from traveling, thanks to the hills and then the designs of the speakers and things like that. There were a few mentions of ANOB matters, also super important. I think, I'm very much completely support and acknowledge there is a tension in the ANOB to say, okay, we're going to protect the countryside, and I think that's absolutely right. But we also want people to visit it and enjoy it. There's a very clear tension there, which they, I think, have to walk. We did get approved obviously for the glamping site, because I think they thought that that's a good way of people enjoying the ANOB without they felt that tension was about right. And with regards to this festival, Rob Fairbanks, who's director of Surrey Hills ANOB, happened to come out in support of this festival as well. So I think that speaks for itself in terms of ANOB matters. Stage positioning, that was something that was raised. And I think there was a lot of comments about it not being the right way of orienting the stage. I think I had a productive meeting with Roger and Mr. Pedder on site the other day, and I think it's certainly fair to say during those daytime hours that those two people in particular would be affected. And yeah, so but that's sort of the thinking behind moving the stage, turning it off before it gets to public nuisance hours, and then taking it down into the kind of sunken canopy which we all visited. Again, not perfect for the afternoon, and very much to acknowledge that, Roger, but I think it works. And again, not to be technical and all that, but I think it will fall within the National Guidance Policy Framework, and that's all we really have to go on in terms of sound and how it's going to travel and the timings at which it's traveling into those places and things. In terms of, there was a point made about plans changing in the last 2 weeks, and yes, that is absolutely true. Things were changed. That it was recommended by the panel that we discuss things and try and make changes where necessary. One of those was the entrance, but I think all the changes made reflect improvements, and I also do think they're quite not that anything's minor and that anything's important, but I think they're relatively minor. So just trying to see if I've missed anything. Sorry. Yeah, and I think that's really just to conclude. We were very happy with how the event went last year, but we also fully acknowledge that these things in an ideal world would have the support of the community. I do think that a lot of people locally do support, and there are lots of letters of support, but then equally there are a lot of people who don't. I kind of do view that more of a symptom of the fact that relations between our family and the local area clearly aren't very good. It's definitely something I would like to improve. I'm probably going to be living in the area for most of my life, and I do want to live in an area where I don't feel like the neighbours don't like me or I'm acting unfairly towards them. And that means ongoing dialogue and genuine execution of the promises that we're, you know, that we've been making, including how to monitor the sound on the night, and not to make a mockery of those sorts of promises and things like that, and to really actually make sure that, you know, leaving aside technicalities, that actually people can be happy with the things that we're doing. And so, yeah, I mean, I've met a few of you over the last couple of weeks and had cordial meetings, which has been good. And I think much more of that is very necessary. You know, of course, I hope the license is approved, obviously, but and I hope that off the back of last year, it kind of I hope should be. And I think going forward, and a few people raised these points, I think just reviewing and reporting the different activities that are going on to make sure that they are remaining within the EHO limits, and they are remaining within the limits that we've all kind of discussed, some of which are technical, some of which are subjective, and both are important. I think, yeah, doing those sorts of reviews and meetings would be worthwhile. I definitely want to stay open to those things. I definitely want to keep these sorts of conversations going and you know, keep an open heart and not feel like a stranger in my own village sort of thing. But I think that covers it, unless anyone thinks I didn't address any of the points raised.
I just wanted to make a point of clarification, if that's okay. Is it allowed?
Well, all right, very briefly.
It was just on the point of the demise plans. The initial plans provided were incorrect in terms of ownership, etc. They may have been amended, but they were were incorrect and they still are incorrect. So okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, the removal of the midnight steeplechase, that isn't a licensable activity and doesn't form as part of the license. And just by the nature of the name, it would take part at midnight, and that wouldn't be covered by the music anyway, because it finishes at 11.
Yeah, I certainly didn't envisage horses with
Glass of wine.
with a glass of wine in one hand and speakers either side of the horse's neck playing music going through the streets. But an interesting thought. But yeah, I think it was just an illustration of the sort of event that might happen, where they would want drinks before they set off or something of that nature. Well, I think it's likely to take about half an hour to sort this out. So just to give you an indication, we should be back in about half an hour.
And if I may just add that
Thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry we kept you waiting a bit longer than we thought, but we had a lot to consider. And I'm going to break it down onto the 3 areas that we've been asked to consider granting a license. With regard to the Redland, license will be granted for up to 6 days in a 12-month period on the hours asked for, namely from 9 till 11, with the sale of alcohol from 9 a.m. till 10:30 p.m. and the music as asked for, which is 10 till 9 Monday to Thursday and 10 to 11 on Friday to Sunday. With regard to the Blue Land, a license will be granted for up to 8 events in a 12-month period. Such events not to exceed 3 days. Same conditions, reopening hours, drinking hours, and music hours as per the Redland, and no alcohol to be sold at any other time. For the red and blue land, a log will be kept of all events involving alcohol and or music, such log to be available on request by the responsible authorities. With regard to the Slade Fest festival, license will be granted subject to the following conditions. Before the festival commences, a full event management plan is to be submitted and approved and implemented. Such submission to go to the Safety Advisory Group. And the plan shall include an incident log and a transport plan. All tickets to the event to be pre-booked with no tickets available on the day. All matters raised by Calvin Hanks' noise management plan dated the 18th of May 2023 to be implemented and followed, with power to be given to the licensing officer to approve modifications, having consulted Waverley Borough Council environmental health officers. 4, vehicle entrance to be as agreed by the applicants on an amended plan that we will provide as agreed at this hearing. All music to cease in area 1 on the plan by 11 p.m. on the Saturday. Alcohol sales to cease in area 1 on the plan by 11 p.m. on the Saturday and reopen in area 2 until 4:30 a.m. All persons entering the land coloured pink shall be searched for unauthorised or illegal objects. The sale of alcohol, there is to be no sale of alcohol from within any existing buildings. A couple of observations: that there is a review process that could be triggered if problems occur. The granting of this license does not overcome any planning issues that may exist, and leave to appeal on the conditions we've imposed must be made within 21 days to the Magistrates' Court. So that, yes, Mr. Hughes.
Sorry, Chairman, could you just repeat the alcohol sales for the first 2 areas, A and
Yeah. So far as the red land is, well, it's both red and blue land. The alcohol sales are in effect as asked. Well, the opening is as asked, which is from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m.
And the alcohol
12.
sales, the alcohol sales would be from 12 till 11.
Sorry, 12 till 10:30.
10:30.
In other words, we brought that forward half an hour. And the music is as asked, which is the different hours that are from Monday and Thursday and Friday to Sunday, as asked. Any other clarification required? Can I thank everybody for their patience? I know this was a difficult matter for us to deal with and for objectors to deal with and so on. And thank you everybody for your patience and your time. And let us hope that it works. We will see. Thank you very much indeed. I now formally close the meeting.